Welcome, Rotarians and guests to the Rotary Club of Seattle, the fourth oldest and one of the world's largest Rotary clubs, where we embrace service above self and are connecting for good. Today's topic is art, enjoying it and collecting it. So accordingly, we are going to shine our Rotary spotlight on the biggest annual art event in our region, the Seattle Art Fair. How many have attended? Wonderful. Then you know you're in for a treat as we get a preview of what's coming up this August. The Art Fair was launched in 2015, and it's a one-of-a-kind destination for the best in modern and contemporary art and a showcase for the vibrancy of our local art community here in the Northwest. It brings together our region's strong collector base, local, national, and even international galleries, area museums and institutions, and an array of innovative public programming. In short, it appeals to my art heart. To offer an artful inspiration today, I've invited our club manager, Caroline Bobanek, to share with us. Caroline just marked her first year as our club manager. Before joining our office team, Caroline worked for almost 2 decades supporting and leading various art organizations. She has a master's degree in art history and brings an artistic flair to all of her work, and we're lucky to have her and to hear from her today. Following Caroline's remarks, I'm delighted to be welcoming back Skip Roland, who's going to lead us in the national anthem, and Marley Iverson is going to be accompanying us. But now, Caroline.
Hello, everybody, and happy summer. It's such a great time to be in the Northwest. So in honor of our art-themed program today, I decided to bring in a quintessentially American artist. This is Edward Hicks to inspire us today. And this is his work called The Peaceable Kingdom. He did over 60 of these, and you can find them throughout museums in the United States. And it's inspired by the book of Isaiah, when God will come down to earth and create the peaceable kingdom, because everybody will be inspired by his divinity. And this was important to Edward Hicks because he was a Quaker, and they had a very strict doctrine of nonviolence. And you'll notice down on the left-hand side is William Penn negotiating with the Native Americans for their peace treaty. And this is something that's kind of special to me, because in the late 1600s, some of my dad's family got tired of being fined and thrown in jail and beaten for being Quakers, so they decided to get on a ship and buy 750 acres from William Penn and settle in Pennswood or Pennsylvania. And they were inspired by his vision of creating a utopia where everyone would live peacefully together, no matter what their religion or how they wanted to live their lives, as long as they were peaceful. And so for Edward Hicks, there was a parallel here between the peaceable kingdom and this new colony that was established. Now, the Quakers also had a belief that I think is really beautiful, and that is that each of us, within us, carries a spark of the divine. And so we're here to do an invocation, and so I'd like to invite you to look inside yourself and find your own spark. And you will know this because it will be the place inside of you that inspires kindness, that inspires compassion, and that inspires a love for all of God's creatures. Thank you.
And now, shifting gears to today's program. As Kathy mentioned, we get an exclusive preview of the Seattle Art Fair, which will be held the first week of August and is produced by Vulcan and Art Market Productions. And giving us this inside peek is Laura Freed, the artistic director of Seattle Art Fair. Laura is the curator and a writer living in Los Angeles. And prior to that, she was the curator at the Contemporary Art Museum, St. Louis. And with her is Kira Burge, who's the senior project specialist at Vulcan. Kira is a Pacific Northwest native who has produced arts events and exhibitions throughout the region for the past decade. Please help me welcome Laura and Kira.
All right. thank you so much for having us. Let's see if I can get this going. So as has been mentioned, the Seattle Art Fair takes place August 3rd through 6th at CenturyLink Field Event Center. We're in our 3rd year this year, and I wanted to just start with kind of a basic overview of what an art fair is, because it's a very new event for Seattle. They're all over the world. And here's a few pictures. So the event, at its core, I think about it as 2 parts. So the core of it is a commercial art fair. So we have over 80 galleries from around the globe that come to Seattle, set up shop. You can see some of our, let's see, do we have some of the booths that we have? So we have over 80 booths. And then at the second part of the fair is really, is really our projects and talks. The fair is founded by Paul Allen in 2015 as a world-class event, and it is really grown into its own just in 2 years. So we're going into our 3rd year, and I wanted to pull up this slide right here just to show you how it is a global event. It's on par with Art Basel in Miami and in Switzerland, with Frieze, with Armory, with a whole bunch of different art fairs from around the world, and has really attracted galleries large and small to come to Seattle and showcase what they do. So I think we'll just move on and jump right into projects and talks, which Laura oversees.
Sure. Well, as Kira mentioned, when the fair was founded by Mr. Allen, the mission from the beginning has been to create a world-class art fair where you can get the best in contemporary art. What's really special about this fair in particular is that we host some of the biggest and best galleries from both coasts and internationally, but there is also a very strong regional and West Coast focus as well, which is really unique for a world-class art fair to have such a strong regional presence. As artistic director, thank you, Kira. As artistic director, I oversee and organize all of the public programming. So the second part of our core mission is to produce a really ambitious public program that is not aimed only at collectors, but for a broad audience in Seattle and for those visitors coming in from elsewhere. We host special projects by artists from all over, as well as a series of talks, both on-site at the fair and off in the city. And we wanted to show you a couple of images from a gallery that's going to be coming up from LA this year for the first time. I'm very excited about the project that we're doing that we're presenting with them with Sean Townley. This is an example of the kind of project that you'll see in the aisle of the fair itself. We have these capacious 30-foot aisles, and outside of the booths themselves, where galleries will present, in a way, their own exhibitions by the artists that are represented in their program, to present a kind of different experience. You'll see about half a dozen projects that are large scale in the aisles, and this project by Sean Townley called 7 Diadems is one of them, where the artist has recreated fragments of a Roman Juno head. I can't wait to see this at the fair this year.
Yeah. So going too fast. There we go. So one of the things that's really unique this year that we haven't seen in the past 2 years is the interest coming out of Asia to Seattle. So we have galleries coming from Japan, we have galleries coming from China and Korea. It's really an international event, and that has been something that's grown. I picked this piece in particular. It's by a gallery. Well, let's see. It's by an artist that is from Nepal and studied Tibetan traditional painting. He's using those same techniques. He's working with gold leaf. He's working in that same technique, but he's putting literally a contemporary twist on on his work. And this artist is represented by a Hong Kong-based gallery, Rossi and Rossi, that has an incredible reputation. And actually, Laura is much more familiar with the gallery itself, and I thought she could share a few tidbits.
Yeah, I can say that it's wonderful to see this gallery at the fair for the first time this year. I traveled to Hong Kong this spring to attend Art Basel, the art fair that happens there each spring. And I have to say there was a lot of buzz already in Hong Kong this year about the Seattle Art Fair. There were collectors in China and a number of galleries really interested to know more about what we're doing. And I think this is manifest in one of the best galleries in Hong Kong coming to participate in this year's fair. I would certainly seek them out this year to see what they're bringing.
So we have galleries that are as far-flung as Asia. We have galleries coming from the East Coast. We have galleries coming up from LA and San Francisco. But we also have a very strong contingent of galleries from our region. There are over a dozen Seattle-based galleries that participate in the fair each year. And it's really a treat to see our local galleries and our local artists right on the same playing field, the same stage as some of the biggest names in the industry and the biggest artists that are in those art history books. So you can see a Donald Judd or a Pollock, or I'm trying to think of some other great
Yayoi Kusama.
Kusama.
Yeah, there's, as you probably have seen throughout the city, there's an exhibition by Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama opening up at the Seattle Art Museum, and I can imagine that there will be works that you can find at the fair this year.
Yeah. So alongside of those bigger names, we're also seeing pieces by local artists that are represented by local galleries. I picked just a couple images. The image on the left is a Deborah Butterfield horse. It looks like it is made of wood and plastic, and it's actually inspired by the detritus that has washed up on the shores since recent tsunamis. And in fact, it is cast in bronze. It is cast locally at Walla Walla Foundry. So there are many connections. That's a foundry that is known worldwide for the work that they do. And this piece is shown at a Seattle gallery, Greg Kucera, and will be at the fair at their booth. And then to the right is a photo that's an older technique, like a tin type, that is made by two local Seattle artists, Eric Johnson and Daniel Carrillo, and they're showing also with a Seattle gallery this year at the fair. I'm excited about this.
As am I. Here are two images of actual works that we'll be presenting off-site. So as I mentioned, part of our mission for our public programs is to bring artworks and projects out into the city so that we can bring our fairgoers out to explore the neighborhoods around the fair, but also to provide meaningful encounters with art for the general public. Jenny Holzer is an artist. Some of you may know her works that are mostly text-based can be found in most museums throughout the world. I'm very honored to be able to present this project by her, which is a series of small, very small-scaled plaques that she produced in the early 1980s. And we're going to be showing these works installed on building facades in Pioneer Square and the International District.
And we've found very great support in the community for hosting these works. We have 50 different cultural partners that we work with that range from artist-run spaces to large museums like the Seattle Art Museum, as well as institutions across the country. So we really lean on our partners to help us host some of these kind of incredible gems. Let's see, is it gonna go? There it goes. So this is another project piece, and so really what defines the projects is they are artist-driven. Laura works directly with the artists, and then they also occupy interstitial spaces of the fair. So the galleries themselves occupy proper booths with walls, and then the projects are filling the aisles. They're expanding the fair out into the community. They're kind of hidden behind a corner, and you're discovering something really surprising, like a video installation. And this piece by Jeffrey Gibson, Laura can speak a little bit more about, but it will be in one of the aisles, probably down that main aisle, one of the first things you see when you walk into the fair.
That's right. This is a really special piece that was produced by Jeffrey, who is a native artist based in New York, last year for Site Santa Fe. There are a few works like this that were produced for public institutions or museums that are coming to us this year. And as you may see here, there are, you see a TP pole, which is going to be suspended from these 40-foot ceilings at CenturyLink, onto which hangs this garment, which from afar looks like a traditional indigenous garment, performance object, but when you get close, you see that it's a real, there's a real combination of both historic and contemporary materials, and it will hang over this drum. But also, it's worth mentioning with this piece, this is a good example of a project you may encounter where nearby you'll find the exhibitor's booth, Roberts and Tilton. And there will be a third part to this project, a video, which the gallery will be displaying. So you can encounter the work, then go to the exhibitor's booth, see this video, and then have a chance to talk to the gallerist about the work itself. And this is a really special part of the fair, too. This is a chance to get to know galleries, not just in your city, but from elsewhere, and to have more in-depth conversations about art.
Yeah, one of the things that I always encourage, especially first-time visitors to the fair, is don't be shy. Go up, ask questions. I picked these two pieces to be in this presentation because I just wanted to highlight one of the things that you would learn if you ask the gallery or ask the artist about their work. And the piece on the left, you'll notice, has holes in it, and on really close inspection, you could probably figure out that they're burned, but you may not be able to figure out what that pigmentation is. And so asking questions about how the piece was made or what inspired the artist is something that is so welcome. And this is unlike a museum, there aren't tags everywhere, but there are people there to teach you about the artist, to walk you along their journey and really open you up to that world. So it's quite a special opportunity.
Say something about the levels of collecting using this?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the questions, and maybe this will come up a little bit later, that it's often asked is, so the fair is part of the fair, the purpose is to purchase art. So can I purchase art? Who's purchasing this art? That's a question that comes up a lot of times. And because of the variety of galleries that are coming to the fair and the breadth of artists that they're showing, there's really an entry point for everyone. So we have smaller galleries that are showing emerging artists that may make work down your block. Their studio might be in their garage just down the street. And we have galleries that are showing big names that have been selling art at auction on the market that are in major museum collections. So there's always something to find there. There's something to take home. There's things to look at and dream about. But it's really a great opportunity to start having that conversation. What is going to go over your couch? So another thing that's really special about Seattle Art Fair that you don't see with very many commercial art fairs of this size and style is that Laura works with artists to actually produce performance work as well. So there are times that you can go to the fair and see something that is only going to happen for that moment or that 20 minutes. And it might happen each day of the fair, so it gives you a few opportunities. But this piece in particular is these images don't do it justice. She'll have to describe it, and then you'll have to come see it.
Yeah. I agree. So Nama Sabar is an Israeli, New York-based artist I've been dying to work with for almost a decade. I first saw her work in New York. She typically builds architecture into which she constructs instruments. And here you'll see the actual work will be showing at the fair, in an aisle of the fair, which is 2 walls which join at an L, into which she has built a string instrument. And you'll see, too, that there's a microphone embedded in the wall. And for most of the fair, throughout the weekend, you can approach the work and you may hear the reverberations or the vibrations of just feet passing along the concrete floor and what the architecture is picking up off of that. But every day, every afternoon, Nama and a collaborator of hers who are coming in from New York will perform the piece. And you can see them embracing the walls here. Nama reaches in to the wall and plays the string instrument. And this other musician will sing, or the roles will be reversed. It's a really beautiful piece. And speaking of performance and architecture, we're really honored to present a major new work by the artist duo Gerard and Kelly. Each year we have had a large contained installation at the fair dedicated to some kind of video presentation. This work, Modern Living, will be the world's premiere of a film that these choreographers and artists have been making over the course of the past 2 years. We are presenting it with the Frye Art Museum, and it's the result of a series of live performances with LA Dance Project. The artists have been making staged at iconic modernist homes that began at the Schindler House in Los Angeles, then the Philip Johnson Glass House in Connecticut. They were recently residents of Pica and worked at a modernist home up there. And finally, go ahead.
Yeah, so as well as performances, we have a daily series of talks. Gerard and Kelly will be speaking with renowned curator Mi-Wan Kwan. Oscar Tuazon and Jennifer West. Jennifer just had an exhibition at the Seattle Art Museum. Will also be speaking on Saturday. Jenny Geith and Nancy Rubens, and Laura can say just a tidbit. I know we're running a little short on time.
I'll be very quick. Yes, Nancy is presenting a project at the fair. She's a major artist. I just had a studio visit with her in Topanga Canyon. She'll be presenting a series of these studies of her large-scale sculptures and doing a talk with a curator from SF MoMA. The talks are all a series of 2-person conversations, artists together. In conversation, we're also featuring 2 local artists who will talk about their commitment to the city. And finally, Amy Siegel and Helen Mira. Amy has a show that just opened at the Frye Art Museum.
So you'll definitely want to check that out before you head to the fair, because that will give you some context to her work, and she'll be there to specifically talk about her work. I just want to leave you, we'll take questions, but I want to just leave you with a reminder of the dates of the fair. Thursday, August 3rd is our preview that evening, and it's actually a benefit for 2 local organizations, Arts Corps and Coyote Central. Friday, August 4th begins our regular fair hours from 11 to 7. They continue on Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Sunday we have a short day from noon to 6. And I know that Catherine and Lisa, we've passed a ticketing link onto them that will go in your Friday, I think it's the Totem. And that will provide all Rotarians discount tickets to the fair. So we really hope to see you there, and we welcome questions.
We have a question from Steve.
Thank you for being here and for all you've put into this. I'm curious to know whether the result of your going to Hong Kong and bringing international renowned artists here will lead to or has led to bringing Seattle artists' works to other parts of the world.
That is certainly an important part of our strategy, both short and long term. Kara can speak to this more a bit probably, but the founding mission is intended to not only bring the world to Seattle to showcase the vital cultural capital that you have here that continues to grow, but to create more visibility for local artists. And so not only not only is that represented in such a strong regional focus with Seattle galleries, galleries from Portland and elsewhere, but artists represented in the public programming, both in the talks and the projects, so that for visitors from outside, this is an opportunity to get to know more intimately the work of artists who are committed to being here.
We have one here from Lauren.
Hi there. Well, I'm sure a lot of us recently saw the big news that Agnes Gunn sold one of her pieces for $165 million to benefit the criminal justice reform. And I'm just curious, this is less about the art show and more just about your perspective on the arts, the role of arts, but maybe you could speak to what do you think the role of the arts are in our community in terms of whether the intrinsic value of art itself as well as its ability to propel social issues, and or are you seeing collectors talking about this kind of thing and doing this work elsewhere in the country?
Yeah, collectors are definitely having these conversations right now. It's something that we are in conversation about all of the time. One of the, I think that kind of same thread is what inspired us this year to be looking at youth arts education as our focus for the beneficiary portion of our fair. So as I mentioned, Arts Corps and Coyote Central are the beneficiary partners of this year's fair. It moves around every year. We've supported the Seattle Art Museum, we've supported Artist Trust, but at least from my perspective, and Laura can maybe speak a little bit more in the industry world of it, locally, we're thinking about art as impacting and changing lives from 0 to 100. So it's definitely something that's on our minds.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And then, to add to that, you'll certainly see this kind of focus in the work of artists themselves, and even in the projects. We don't put the projects together with a specific curatorial theme in mind. It's really about seeking out the best projects, but themes always emerge, and this year there is certainly a common thread among most of the projects towards social activism, and you'll see that manifest in various ways.
Question from John here.
Howdy, thank you for being here in your art and your work. Last week we had a bit of a discussion on virtual reality. Do you anticipate any booths with virtual art?
I haven't seen any promises yet, but there are a few galleries that have in the past brought virtual reality art. The one that comes to mind that I know has a nice sized booth this year, kind of near the front of the fair, is 101 Exhibits. They're from, I think, the Bay Area. And they usually have artists that work in virtual reality and integrate a sculptural component, so you actually have a virtual reality experience that's 3D printed. But that's something that definitely pops up, especially the world outside of here knows Seattle is tech hungry and tech excited. So you'll see galleries here and there throughout the fair that will have that kind of work.
Yeah.
President Kathy?
Quick question. What's in it for youth, for our kids and our grandkids?
That's a great question.
That's a great question. So we always have a bit of a youth-focused or a family-focused space at the fair. This year we're working with a local design collective called Civilization, and they're developing it's like a 1,500 square foot space of interactive activities ranging from simple like drawing to actually moving physical objects around to build kind of their own interpretations of artwork that really explore the key components of looking and learning about art. So it goes back to basics. It's talking about color theory. It's talking about shape and perception and metaphor. So I'm actually looking forward to like taking a break in that space. I did last year in our kids' space, and just kind of settling in and then being able to go back out into the fair. So there'll definitely be something for you to bring your children, your grandchildren to. Children 12 and under get into the fair free with an adult, and we also offer $5 teen tickets for those that are age 13 to 19.
I can say personally that this project, the Civilization Project, I'm excited this year to have my toddler and his grandmother spend their time in while I'm running around. It's the perfect project.
Question from Faith Ireland.
Just a quick question. Can you talk about the cost, benefit, economic consequences?
So the fair, and forgive me if I don't totally dive in, but the fair itself, so initially, Mr. Allen was inspired by the Venice Biennale, which is a festival, and doesn't have a commercial component. When he came back to his team, this was a few years before we started, he asked them what would make an impact, what would be economically viable here, what would go back and support the community. So the way that the fair is modeled is really to be a viable business, to be a platform for galleries to be bringing in revenue, and to really be something that's sustainable and a contributor to our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Laura, and thank you, Kira, for the sneak peek, and hopefully it got us all excited. I want to just restate the very generous offer that the Art Fair has extended to Seattle Rotarians for a 20% discount off of one-day and multiple-day tickets, and we'll be running the link to that so you can order them online. It'll run in the totem for the next 3 weeks. Well, I'd like to add my gratitude to the program angels, and let's have a round of applause for that archangel, our Vice President of Programs, Lisa Mayfield. I also want to thank the 300 members who gave to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International. We acknowledged our Paul Harris Fellows, but every gift that our 300 members made goes toward the work of Rotary internationally and comes back in matching grants. So thank you for that. And if you haven't had the opportunity to give, please respond when Jim Duncan contacts you. I want to welcome Annie and Kevin and Allison as well to our Rotary family, and invite you to go to the back door of the ballroom so we can greet you when we leave. We're delighted to have you as members of our club. Well, next Wednesday is the last meeting of the current Rotary year. Tone it down, tone it down. And it's going to be a celebration. And we're going to start, I'm going to invite you to arrive early because the Rotary Rogues are going to do a Broadway sing-along. We'll have a piano out in the foyer at the Sheraton, so please come if you can, even as early as 11:30. We'll be having a sing-along. The meeting's going to feature a special musical performance. We're going to do a year-in-review recap. You're going to hear my final call to action. And perhaps most moving of all, we will have the ceremonial passing of the gavel to Mark Wright, our club's 109th president. So see you next week. We're adjourned.